Hello. So I haven't been making the best top reading wrap-ups for the last couple months. I just didn't get around to it. And so I think I'm going to do like a reading wrap-up of the quarter. So December, January, and February. It's not really a quarter, but whatever, last 3 months. And so I went through my Goodreads and I found my top 5 books and my lowest 3 books. And I will just list them off. They're not in any order. They're just the top 5 are the 5 that I gave the 5 stars to, and then the lowest 3 I think I gave 2 stars to both of them. Memory Thief I might have given 1 star to, but either way, they're low. So we'll start with the best. The latest one was The Purple Prince. I did do a full summary reading wrap-up of that one review. That one is a self-pub book by Sebastian Mankes. It is a multi-POV high fantasy story set in its own new world. It has a very interesting magic system. It is one of those books that has the gods who interact with the humans. The gods have recently been killed, and some people want to bring the gods back, and others believe that the killer of the gods is the chosen one, and that makes her family the chosen family to rule. And so it's pretty political. There's a semi-minor romantic subplot going on with a couple of the main characters, and then other main characters are more on the political side. You follow a priest and the prince and some good duchess type girl. There is an assassin, and then the purple prince. So he is violet-eyed. He has purple eyes, and that gives him extra powers in this land. There are people with violet eyes, and they have the most control over the power. So that one was one of my favorites. I highly recommend it. The next is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. That one is a memoir. It is about a doctor, a researcher who got cancer, and it is his book that he was writing at the end of his life to just try and, it's his perspective of dying and what you learn and how you feel, and it's from a more medical standpoint. So I like that it's not as emotional, his perspective. It's more just what's happening, how he feels, the way that he tries to combat it, and then there is a afterword by his wife from her side of things, and she actually, I enjoyed her perspective a lot as well. She's a very good writer as well. I don't remember what she did for her occupation, but she gave her perspective, how it felt from her side, and then kind of what happened after he died type thing. So that one I listened to. It was very good. And then there's Babel, an Arcane History by R.F. Kuang. I actually have had her other book sitting on my shelf for quite a while, The Poppy Wars, but I picked up Babel. It was our book club book, and I was excited to get it. I also got it in Book of the Month. I suggested it. But that book it leans more heavily on the historical fiction side, but it is fantasy historical fiction. It takes place in Oxford in England, years, I think 1700s, maybe 1800s, so a long time ago, but it takes place on the Oxford campus, and the little twist that makes it fantasy is that they can use silver bars, and they inscribe words into the silver bars and use translations. So it's a little bit confusing, so I'm going to try and explain it, and I'm sorry if it's confusing, but it's a great book. Just read it. But so when you translate a word, something is going to get lost in the translation. And so if you use 2 words that are quite similar but slightly different, whatever is that slight difference is going to be, it's going to come out of the magic. So if you have one word that just means light and the other word means bright light, if you inscribe both of those words in 2 different languages onto the silver bar, it will make whatever that silver bar is connected to brighter. So they use these things to make their lights brighter, to make their gardens quieter, to make their cars go faster. Pretty much anything you can think of, they're making these silver bars. And so Oxford has a big monopoly on this. And so they charge a lot of money for it, and they're pretty much untouchable. And so they bring in these children from foreign countries who know a foreign language, obviously, and they're from a foreign country. But it's a lot about colonization and how it feels to these children, and then they become young adults who have been used and brought to this country. They feel like, how can I turn this opportunity down, because it is such a better life. It's an amazing opportunity. You can learn all you want. You can have success and privilege, but you are being used by the oppressors, pretty much. And so it digs deep into that. It does get political, but it's very interesting. The end, it's a little bit of a slow build, especially in the middle. Nothing exciting really happens in the first part. It's more just making a base for what you need to know going forward. It follows a boy when he's younger, and then he becomes a young adult, and then he goes to university, and his life at Oxford then. And then the end is a big ending that it's not exactly a surprise, but it is. I found it emotional, and I enjoyed it. It was very good. The next one is Becoming by Michelle Obama. That one I listened to. It was an audiobook. I hadn't picked it up. A few of my friends have read it, and they said it was really good. So I picked up Michelle Obama's book, and learning her backstory was quite amazing. She grew up in the kind of inner city Chicago. She didn't grow up in a great neighborhood. She's very proud of her neighborhood. She wants everyone to know that she had a happy childhood. She had a family who loved her, but she did have to work hard to get out of that neighborhood. And Barack also, he came from lower class. His mother was divorced, and she raised him as a single mother. They worked hard to get where they were, and they just were very smart people who made it into college, worked hard in their Ivy League schools, got good lawyer jobs, and then just slowly found their way into politics. I didn't realize that. It seems like he was just meant for that, but they honestly just kind of found their way into it. They never went into it thinking he was going to run for presidency. And after, it's more about her life. So it's from her perspective, how she felt as a wife and as a family, as Barack was going through all of his elections, what it meant to their family, how hard it was to be a wife of a politician and to be the family, how they tried to navigate raising young girls while still being in the public eye. So I found that very interesting. She did a great job. She narrated it, which is always nice when the author narrates their own biography. So I liked it. It gets slightly political at the end. Most of the book isn't really. They just talk about the fact that there's elections, but it only gets slightly political at the end. But I recommend it to people no matter what side you're on. And then finally, the fifth book, not ranked, but the fifth book is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is a retelling, I guess you could say, or a dramatization of the Brides of Dracula, I believe it's advertised as. So it's about vampires. It does deal with, drinking blood, but it's more a book about abuse, physical and emotional, and how he made his brides, it's actually two women and a man, but how he made them feel and how he kept them tied to him, and then how they eventually break out. The book starts with her killing, the main character killing him, so he's gonna die at the end, but it is a story about how she came to terms with her own independence and what he was doing to them, and how they killed him so they could be free and live their own vampire lives. It's less about vampires, more about the emotional aspect of it, but there blood and vampirism in it. So if that bothers you, I guess don't read it. But I really liked it. It was great. It's not the longest book ever. I think it was like under 300 pages maybe. It was very good. I guess content warnings if you have issues with, if you've had issues in your past with abuse. Know that going into it is a lot about emotional abuse, but I think it handled it well. I don't have that personally, and so I can't speak from that perspective, but from an outside perspective, they handled it very well, so I recommend it. So next I have the worst books that I read this quarter. The first one was The Memory Thief. These were actually all audiobooks, so there is that fact that it could be just that I might have liked them more if I read them, but I'm reading or listening to more and more audiobooks, and I feel like I'm getting a better judge of whether or not it's an audio issue or if it's just not for me. So the first one was The Memory Thief by Laura Mancy. This one I actually even DNF'd. I went over halfway though, and it was not good. The premise, I wanted it to be good. It just wasn't executed well. In this world, certain groups of people can steal memories, so if you touch them, or a select few can just do it without touching you, but most of them have to touch you, and then they can steal memories, and then they have monetized it so that way they sell memories to people, and then they can relive that memory and they can feel like they've done it. So that's kind of how they're like traveling and feeling things these days, is they buy memories. So if you have done something wrong, then you are put up for auction and they raffle off all of your memories and people purchase them. And it's kind of like a torturous way to die because you no longer are yourself. Sounds very, very morbid that way. But the main girl, she had something happen to her. She didn't used to be able to take memories, but now she has something happen to her that she can now take memories, and so she's not marked as a memory taker. Most of the young children are marked when they're young. She is like a secret memory taker now, and so the only person who knows is the mayor, I guess you'd call her, the head person in their area. And she's kind of against her. They have put her mom inside a facility where they're supposed to take care of people, but she is treated poorly, and so the main girl is trying to get her mother out, and so she goes on this big adventure to try and save her mother, pretty much. She used to be part of this gang of thieves type thing, and she had a falling out with them, and she has to go back and buddy up with them again. And of course there's like insta-love situation going on. One of the people in this gang of thieves, they're all of a sudden they meet and they're perfect for each other and they will do everything for each other and die for each other, and it was poorly executed. It's kind of a convoluted story, and I saw everything coming, like all the twists. I was like, well, yeah, obviously. I couldn't do it anymore. I probably wouldn't even gotten that far except for as an audiobook, so I just kind of listen to it as my kids play sometimes. But anyway, the next one is Gilded by Marissa Meyer. I honestly went into this, I thought it was a different book than it was. I thought it was like that Midas retelling. It's not, it's a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I don't even remember what the Midas retelling is called now. I'll have to try and figure out which book I actually thought I was going to be reading. But I think my issue is insta-love these days. The Marissa Meyer book, Gilded, it deals with this girl who, she was taken, well, first her mother was taken by the, oh shoot, what are they called? The fairies that fly through the night and they steal people. The Night's Hunt or something like that. So her mother was taken by it when she was a young girl. And then now she is taken as well, and she convinces, she's good at telling stories, and so she convinces the Earl, King, the leader of the hunt, that she can spin gold. And so from straw. on this special night that they hunt. And so she is taken and brought to a special castle, and she has to spin straw to gold, and she meets someone there who helps her with that, and they fall in love, and it's happily ever after. So there's another slight mystery of who he is, and he's kind of a ghost, but he's not really a ghost. They're calling him the poltergeist, and he's supposed to be like the only nice, happy one that lives in this castle with all these mean, dead people of the hunt. It was fine. It got a little bit better at the end. It's a series, so I don't think I'm going to continue. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't really like any of the characters. The main character was fine, but it just wasn't really believable. I don't recommend it. And then the final one is the Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. This one is a little bit sad because it was one of the either Jenna's book club or Reese's book club or a book club that's supposed to be good. I thought it would be interesting. It's about, what's her face? Agatha Christie. So I guess in real life, Agatha Christie went missing for a few days, and this story is like what could have happened to her. And so it's about Agatha Christie, how her husband was cheating on her and he had a mistress, and how they were all tied together and a big conspiracy, and they all helped each other out to get back at the husband. It ties in another main character that happens to be tied into both of the women. He's kind of like dating and meant to be with one woman and the other woman, I don't know. It was kind of confusing, and it all got tied up with a bow too nicely type situation. Maybe if you just like the easy read, romantic, early Britain stories, it's probably like 1900s. I think it was like flapperish times, 20s, 30s, something like that. It wasn't my favorite. It was, again, an audiobook. I listened to it. I probably rounded down to a 2. It probably is like a 2.5, but I just didn't love it. I was kind of like about it, and so I'm not going to recommend it, so I just put it at a 2. But anyways, can't tell you too much more about it because it was just meh to me. But so yeah, so those are my top 5 books, my bottom 3 books. We'll see if I get back into doing a monthly wrap-up or not. February and now March has been a lot of nonfiction, which is hard for me to push through. I had 2 that were assigned for book club, and I couldn't even finish those in February, and then I had another one that I was finishing up. It was a lot of nonfiction. Or fiction. Nonfiction. Yeah. But anyways, that's my wrap-up, and I'll see you next time.